All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out to our Kaysville City Planning Commission meeting this evening. Pretty lengthy agenda. We're going to get things started with the opening and approval of minutes from the meeting of March 8th, 2018.
We'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from our meeting as of March 18th, 2018.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thanks. 2A, group swimming lessons at 2288 West, 600 North for Andre and Kyle Lortz.
This is pretty standard swimming lesson request. Property is located on the map at the end of a cul-de-sac. It's a large lot. They got the indoor swimming pool in the back. A lot of driveway parking space to accommodate people. They'd like to do swimming lessons. It's outlined there on the staff report. They plan on up to 4 students at a time. The recommendation is that this should be approved, subject limiting the number of students to no more than 8.
All right.
Just so you're aware, Lyle met with all these people, but he's at a conference this weekend. So I apologize, but I don't know the applicants to tell you if they're here or not.
Okay. All right. Andre or Kyle Lortz here. Anything to add to this? Pretty straightforward. Got it. I don't know. Commission? Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. I'll make a motion that we grant approval for a conditional use permit for major home occupation B, group swimming lessons, with a limit of no more than 8 students for Andre and Kyle Lortz, 2288 West, 600 North.
8 students per class, right?
Per class.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll second. Aye.
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 All right. 2B, conditional use permit, major home occupation B, vintage trailer remodification and resale for Miss Marilyn DeBry at 402 North Wilkie Street. Staff.
This one's a little different than some we've seen before. The DeBrys buy and resell trailers, similar to what would be seen here. Do some restoration and then sell them back off again. I think they've done this to some extent at their home in the past. They'd like now to get a business license and do it maybe more officially. I don't know that would be how much more they would do now than before. This can meet the requirements for major home occupation. There are a couple issues that probably need to be addressed, and that's the location where work's done on the trailers and where the trailers are stored when they're being sold and worked on. It's been recommended by the staff that the trailers stay in the backyard only, so not in the front yard or the side yard, but in the backyard, even when they're being sold. No power tools be used between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. so that there's not noise disturbance in the neighborhood after normal hours. We've had a couple people call and express some concern that some of the trailers have been left on the street for an extensive amount of time. We'd suggest that no trailers be left on the street. And then that the number of trailers on the property at any one time be restricted to 2 to just keep it under control.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Marilyn DeBry, you here this evening? You want to come up to the lectern? Questions, comments from anybody?
So I have a couple things. I'm pretty sure we all know what this is saying, but just to make sure, we're saying 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. through the night, right? Because the way it's written is
typo is backwards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so I guess technically, then, is this the house? This is your house? Okay. So are we saying, Andy, that would technically be in the front yard, even though it's in the driveway?
That's correct.
So is that the pad that I see in the backyard with another trailer?
Yeah, that's the one in the back is our family trailer.
Okay.
This is the one we're working on, and we just moved it to the back tonight.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I understand, I think, now.
Another
So-
question, there's not any fencing, correct?
Any fencing?
Any fencing?
No. There is along the back, but nothing on the side or front.
Okay. Have you had any comments or feedback from any neighbors about it?
Not to us directly, but I guess there have been calls this week.
Okay. Yeah, I received a phone call personally, actually. I talked to one of your neighbors in pretty great depth and detail about this, and his concern was trailers being left on the street. Apparently that's an issue and a concern. Obviously, if this is granted, that can't and won't happen. It's been
Okay.
restricted where they'll just be regulated to that back pad. The second issue that he had, and probably isn't more along the lines of the conditional use permit, but and I understood where he was coming from, but that I'm assuming that just you and your husband are doing this work, right?
Yeah, and a couple
So
guys.
what he wanted to know was, are either of you a licensed electrician?
No.
Okay. Because that may pose a problem too. Probably not so much for the conditional use permit, but obviously you guys are doing electrical work on these, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I was buying something from somebody that wasn't an electrical contractor that was licensed, I think I probably might have some question and some concern with that. So,
Well, I mean, I agree that is largely irrelevant for the conditional
It
use
is.
consideration, and it's arguable that they would need a license for that, but that's not within our purview anyway.
no, it's not. But I told him that I would bring it up, and
Sure.
and so I did. And so, however you want to deal with that and work with it moving forward is up to you. So, outside of parking trailers on the street and 2 at a time and the time constraints, I mean, I think that this is pretty straightforward, and I don't really have any, issues or problems with this.
I'm just curious on the selling. How do you guys advertise? Do you put a sign out? Do you advertise in the paper? Do people? How many people come by? Is it by appointment only, or?
We advertise on vintage trailer websites, like a Facebook site. People, pretty much we have our one buyer comes. I communicate with them over the course of a couple weeks, and they pretty much commit to buying it because they've traveled from California and, far away. So I did advertise one time on KSL and had a couple local people come, but they just wanted to look at it.
Oh. How often do you turn them over? How long does it take to restore, and what's your hold time on them?
A couple months.
A couple months on that? So you'd probably turn 20, 24 a year?
No.
Oh, not that many?
It's
No.
just,
Six.
Okay, 6.
Yeah.
So I was thinking 2, and I was going the other way.
I wish, but no.
I was trying to encourage you. No.
So about a half a dozen a year.
Yeah. That
Yes.
would,
Contingent on weather and everything. I mean, obviously you're not.
yeah, winter's slower and,
Oh, yeah.
One other item, if I might. I had some concern expressed about chemicals, paints, and those kind of things being used. We probably should get a feel for how that's done and what kind
Yeah,
of
how's-
restrictions may be placed there.
How's that being handled?
I use a roller and brush. I don't have like a thing to contain fumes or anything.
So it's all latex paint that's put on there?
It's a marine grade paint. It is,
Oh, okay.
it is latex. It's water
Soluble.
based. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you store that or anything else, any other chemicals or anything on your property related
Yeah,
to this?
there's paint and paint thinner and in the garage spray paint. I do spray paint some small things just on cardboard.
But probably nothing that nobody else here in attendance or anybody else in Kaysville has in their garage.
Yeah,
Quantity-wise.
just normal.
Yeah, quantity-wise, yeah.
Just normal garage stuff.
Okay. All right. Motion, I guess.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we grant a conditional use permit for major home occupation B, trailer resell for Marilyn DeBry at 402 North Wilkie Street.
Conditions on there?
Let's see. Sorry. Thank you. That there will be no power tools used for work on the trailers between the hours of 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. The number of trailers being restored or listed for sale on the property shall not exceed 2 at any one time, and that they may also not be stored on the front yard, street, or side yard, and have to be restricted to the backyard.
Second.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If you're interested, there's somebody in the audience who would like to comment.
Oh, yes. Gosh dang it. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. If you want to, come on up, and I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm Richard Allen. I live across the street from the DeBrys, and great family. Watched this take place for the last couple of years in the driveway here, just like that trailer is there. As an enterprising family, you know, the trailer in the back there is their family trailer, but is as a business. You know, it's ready. It's for sale. The last one they had for their family they sold, so I would contend that that one's up for sale as well, even though it's a personal trailer. So,
Okay. So I get your concern. I mean, however, though, so that still limits 2 at any one time.
Well, I mean, the way this is worded, and I don't think Gary was as clear. The way we've said it, where the staff report says is 2 have to be for sale, and in theory that means they could have 1 extra not for sale, 3 total.
Okay.
There's 3 there now.
And he's right. The way I worded it was there could not be any more than 2 trailers at any one time for resale or to be restored. So if that trailer is for sale, I guess that would count as one of the 2.
I don't think it's
so
for sale
no
now.
more at 2 at any time, either for sale or being resale.
Our plan is to fix it up for a family and use it all summer and possibly sell it, but I don't know.
So the question is, do we want to limit it to 2 period, or 2 being worked on or listed for sale plus another?
I think it's 2 for sale.
2
or-
period. Okay.
Yeah, 2 period.
All right.
Yeah.
2 period. Okay. All right. So we're at where we're at.
So if everything was fine, same with the motion, and we say 2 period, I will still say aye.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me clarify then
Okay.
that it is at 2, no more than 2 at any time on the property.
Okay.
Aye.
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 This we have 3 now. This one is to be sold on Saturday the 21st. Is it okay to keep?
Well, yeah,
B
that's
until
fine.
then?
But after that, moving forward, then it's 2.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be out of there in the next a week, right?
Yeah.
All right, on to number 3. No, 2C, sorry. Conditional use permit, major home occupation B, for eyelash extensions, which is a far departure from trailer renovations, for Megan Porter at 949 Whisperwood Cove. Staff.
It's a little more similar to what we're used to seeing, just eyelash extension, similar to the one-chair beauty salons that we see frequently here. By appointment only type work. Clients come in by appointment, get their eyelashes extended, I guess, and be 1 customer at a time. Normal stuff on this one. Sorry.
All right.
Probably didn't explain that the best way. Sorry.
Megan Porter, are you here this evening? You want to come up for your 15 minutes of fame?
I think you have your first customer right there.
Yeah, I think
you
so,
can
right.
understand it.
All right. You're not renovating trailers, are you?
Nope.
Okay, good. I think this is probably pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Maybe limit her to 2 eyelash extensions at a time. or
Right at a
something.
time, right.
I only have 1 bed, so unless they want to squeeze really
All right,
tight,
well, it can be
it's only
cozy
1.
sometimes, so all right. All right. If nothing from this from the commission, then probably motion here, and we can go forward from here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that it's only a handful of appointments a week negates any negative impact that might come.
Traffic issue,
Yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah.
No.
So I'll make a motion that we grant a conditional use permit for major home occupation B for eyelash extensions to Megan Porter at 949 Whisperwood Cove.
I'll second that.
Aye.
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 Thanks. Oh, she's already got it. You're welcome. All right, moving forward through our conditional use gamut. Conditional use permit major home occupation B for carpet cleaning for Boyd and Marcia. Is that right? Okay, good. Castleman at 447 West Creekside Lane. Staff.
This is a carpet cleaning business. They'd like to run out of their home. Recently acquired a couple of carpet cleaning vans. I assume it has equipment on the inside. Currently, their son that lives at their home is driving one of those vans. They're looking for another person to pick up the other one and then store it at their own property. Ultimately, when the son moves out, the van would go with him. And the home would just be the office for doing the paperwork and taking the appointments. So under those conditions, we see this fits very well into the major home occupation and would recommend approval.
Okay, thanks. Anything to add to this? Probably pretty straightforward, right? Okay. Commission?
I mean, the reality is there's probably untold numbers of businesses in the city operating as offices that don't have conditional uses, but they should. So this is, I think, just doing it the right way.
All right. All right, then.
I'll make a motion that we grant conditional use permit for major home occupation B carpet cleaning for Boyd and Marcia Castleman at 447 West Creekside Lane.
I'll second.
Aye.
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 Thanks. All right, 2E, conditional use permit, major home occupation B, doggy daycare for Miss Stella Allred at 1583 South Haight Creek Drive. Staff.
This one's a little different again. Property's located on Haight Creek Drive there, it's a reasonably sized lot. The request is to do some daytime daycare for dogs. She either brings the dogs, has people bring the dogs to her home where she babysits them throughout the course of the day, or alternatively, she may go to people's homes who are on vacation and let the dogs out for the requisite amount of time and then make sure they're back in the house at nighttime and taken care of and fed and watered. We do not allow in this zone for a kennel, which would allow dogs to stay overnight, be cared for. But in this case, the dogs would only be coming to the residence in the daytime for daytime hours when people are at work or other circumstances. So with the condition that no dogs would be left overnight, recommended that no more than 6 dogs at the home at any one time. And that's including the pets that they may own themselves, just to keep it under control. We believe with those conditions, this could fit into the major occupation B and be approved.
All right. Thanks, Andy. Stella Allred, are you here this evening? Yes. Do you want to come forward? All right, questions? I've received some email and traffic and stuff on this myself, so anyone else?
How many dogs do you have personally? It says you already have some. You have one? Have you done this before?
No, I'm starting.
Oh, okay. And have you had discussions with any of your neighbors on this? I can see some of the concerns they have. I'm a dog person myself, but I do see concerns.
Well, the right next to our house is an empty lot on the right side, which is where the kennel will be, the side where the kennel will be. That one is an empty lot. And our neighbors on the other side, I did talk to them and asked if they would be okay with me doing that. And I explained that it was only during the day, and they told me they wouldn't have any problem with it.
Do you walk them all at the same time, or individually,
I
or?
haven't started, so I would have to. I don't think I could do that, depending on the size of the dogs. I think, but I don't know. I haven't had any dogs, so I don't know how I would handle that. But I'm thinking it's probably going to depend on the size of the dogs.
Okay.
And I think even if they're small, probably 2 or 3 at the most would be.
All right.
So, so there's a slight contradiction here. So, the R18 zone doesn't allow for kennels. However, you stated that you plan on having a kennel on the border of your property that faces the empty lot. So how do we?
Well, I think that's a
Kennel is
definitional
defined
thing.
as
Yeah.
overnight care for more than 3 dogs, I believe.
Okay.
So, and I think what she's saying is a kennel, which is a
The dog
a
run.
cage. A cage.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So will these dogs be? So while these dogs are in your care, so all right. So you have 1 dog, correct? 1. So you can have up to 5 more at your home between
Proposed.
yeah, I mean, yeah, between the hours of what I'm assuming probably what, yeah, there's no time on here. So daytime, what's our time frame here? What are we looking at? 8 to 5, 8 to 6, 8 to, I think that there needs to probably be some kind of a time constraint put on this. Yeah, that's my own suggestion here. And then I guess from where I'm going from there is, so if that's the case, will these dogs be kept outside, inside, a little bit of both? How?
I think that would be the case. Either, because I'm thinking they probably would have to go outside. If they're in the house, they need to go outside to, do their.
Sure, yeah, I get that.
And things like that. But, I mean, my dog, he comes and goes all the time outside. He prefers to be outside.
Is your yard fenced?
It is part of it, not the whole thing.
So it's not fully enclosed.
Sorry, what?
Your yard is not fully enclosed, is that right?
No, not all of it. It's pretty big.
So if they're outside and it's not fully enclosed, how do you contain
Yeah,
them?
how do you, that's
It's,
what,
it's just that the area where they're going to be is all enclosed.
Oh,
But
that
the
part of it.
front
Oh,
yard
okay.
is pretty big, and we haven't fenced the whole thing.
So how
But
big is the
area
dog
where,
run?
Where the dogs will be, it is completely fenced.
Okay. Is it top fence too on the run, or is it open?
It's open.
How tall is it?
It's about this.
Oh, okay.
6 feet. Okay.
I think one of the concerns, not only perhaps with this, one of the emails we got was concerned about barking, but just kennels in general. And I'm talking the definition that Andy talked about as a kennel is the potential noise for multiple dogs being in one place.
Right.
So I don't know how to get around that other than, I mean, if you said all the dogs have to be inside, that somewhat negates it, but I don't know that that's what would
feasible,
happen
yeah,
or feasible. How do you do that? So how would you eliminate, or not eliminate, but control or reduce barking?
Usually what I do with my dog is when he's barking, and especially if it's like at night and if I know that the neighbors will not like it, I just bring him inside.
Mhm.
That's all I do.
Yeah. Okay. And then another concern is if you're letting the dogs outside to either play or do their duty, so to speak, how would you control, where they go meaning if they go off the property?
No, they can't.
They can't go off the property.
No, because the
area where they're at is
So you don't. So you're saying you would only let them outside within the fenced-in kennel?
Yes.
The cage?
Yes, only where the area where it's caged, which is still big.
Yeah. But your dog, though, you let out, though, you're saying, to run around or whatever?
No, I chain him out.
Okay.
I hook him out to a chain, but he's never I never let him be outside just by itself.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, what were you going to say?
The kennel that we're talking about, is there a direct access from your home to the kennel, or is there a space between the house
No.
until you get to the kennel?
No, from the
So you walk out the door, you're in the kennel?
the garage. Yeah, through the garage.
Okay. That eliminates some concern of dogs getting loose. Just, if you're walking it out and he sees a rabbit and takes off, you've got one dog.
To me, the zoning, the R1A isn't so much an issue because it's R110, R114, R120, whatever the zone is. The dogs, the barking is probably the biggest concern, and so the size doesn't matter on the lots because the noise is still going to carry whether it's and your yard looks like a bigger yard than it's in the R18, but it looks like it's a bigger lot. But so I'm not worried about quite frankly what the designation of the zone is, so much as the number and the noise. I mean, you do have homes closer with the smaller zoning, so it probably does transfer and it could become more of a nuisance. That's my concern is the nuisance that it could potentially cause.
Yeah,
but it's conditional, so it could always be revoked if it did become a nuisance.
That's
a legitimate nuisance. Right.
So we discussed it briefly and didn't really get any kind of an answer. What kind of and I mean, I know you're kind of freelancing this whole thing, kind of doing this all on the fly right now. What kind of time frame are we looking at here? Not when does it start, but when do you intend to house dogs in your yard? I mean, what kind of time frames are we talking about here?
You mean
Yeah, like day. Yeah, right. Well, because obviously you can't keep anything overnight, right? So, I mean, are we looking at from 8 to 5? Are we looking at 8 to 7 at
dusk
night?
to dawn,
Yeah, dusk to dawn, 6 in the morning until. I mean, because there's nothing in any of and nothing from staff and nothing that you've said. I mean, I don't want to give you carte blanche to say, well, I mean, okay, well, she said they're going to be during the day. I mean, I'd like to put some kind of a time constraint on this with.
Would 7 to 7 be?
Well, I don't know. You tell me. I mean, what's your clientele look like? I mean, this is, I mean.
Well, I'm thinking like around the time that I'm going to be going to get him.
Will they be, so I guess, will they be dropped off at your house, or is this, you're going to pick them all up?
Yes.
Okay.
I will be the one picking him up because this is for pet owners who are traveling
Oh.
and things like that. So I will be the one picking him up.
So this is a long-term thing then? Or what, well, you say, see, so I mean, so that's kind of a sticky wicket there, because you say folks that are traveling and stuff, I mean, but you can't keep them overnight, right?
No.
Okay.
So I will bring him in the morning and then bring him back home at night.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I mean, one option, I guess there's really two options to set a time frame. One of them is just to set a hard 7 to 7 as an example. But 7 o'clock in the summertime is pretty still light,
No,
quite
sure,
a bit.
yeah,
I mean,
right, I
you
get
could
that.
go sunrise to sunset. That's another option
Well, yeah, but then that's from like 6 a.m. until 10 p.m.
in the summer. Yeah,
in the summer, right?
in the winter, it's
other way around.
it's not. It's 5.
I know.
Isn't that a song?
Probably.
I just throw it out there as an option. Yeah, I mean,
you understand my concern with wanting to put like
Yeah,
some
for sure.
kind of okay. All
yeah.
right.
You know, I have a concern about the dog waste. You have 6 large dogs. Where are you storing this? You put it in a garbage can outside when it's 100 degrees, that smell is going to be horrific for your neighbors.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's going to be there
I didn't even think
all
of that.
week.
Sorry.
The pet waste.
Oh, okay.
And we're going to let them do their business, but you better be picking it up and you better be putting it somewhere. And if it's next door to me, I'm not really happy if I've got to smell that. I just assume that that's going to be pretty
potential
bad.
for rodents too if it's becomes
Yeah.
kind of a little bit waste that's
Yeah, if it's
isn't
not
being-
picked up
being-
regularly.
yeah.
Right.
Are you feeding them inside or are you feeding them outside? Feeding them outside
Yeah,
again,
where's
you
the
have
food stored?
rodents potentially causing problems.
What I do with my dog is I don't leave the food. I just feed him I actually feed him twice a day, and he eats it, and that's it. I don't leave the food just laying around.
Right, but I think where we're going with this whole thing, though, is, you're talking as a dog owner with one singular dog, one. You're multiplying this exponentially. Obviously, there has to be there has to be a shift in mindset with, okay, well, I'm not so much looking at just one dog now, as now I'm looking at 6, and that's going to magnify my feeding process, my waste removal process, watering, all. I think that there's a large scope of concern here. The couple of emails and a couple of phone calls that I received on this, I fully understand where they're coming from. If this moved into my house next door to me or whatever, you're damn right that I'd have a little bit of a concern with what's going on. And granted, I'm gone for most of that time throughout the day because I work during the day, but May through September, if I'm home and I'm hearing 6 dogs barking, from 6 o'clock at night until 8. Yeah, that I don't know how. Well, I can tell you how happy I'd be. I wouldn't. So, but I think that there seems to be a lot of questions here that aren't being fully answered with, in my estimation, a satisfactory kind of a thing. You're basing all this on that you're a pet owner and that you have, one animal that you take care of. This is getting much larger, and this is becoming a much more of a bigger enterprise. So what are we doing to abate the questions and the concerns that not only we here have, but the community, your neighbors, things along those lines?
So I just made a list of what I've heard as the issues because, we all know as a commission, but just for the folks here tonight, basically a conditional use says, okay, there are uses in a zone that we will just permit, and there's no questions asked. If you want to do a certain thing in a certain zone that's permitted, you get to do it. Conditional use says you probably get to do it if we can put conditions, if we can impose conditions that will address or will eliminate any reasonably foreseeable detrimental impact from the use. And so what we have to say is, what are those reasonably foreseeable detrimental impacts, number one, and then number two, can we put any conditions that will mitigate those impacts? So the issues I see, the reasonably foreseeable issues that I see are barking, what to do with the pet waste that will increase 6-fold if we did 6, the timing, what time parameters are we going to set during the day to allow the multiple dogs there, the number of dogs, how many do we want? Do we want 6? Do we want something less? So I don't know. Or is 6 acceptable? And then when the dogs are outside, where are they going to go? How often are they going to be outside together? And when are they going to be outside? Those are the issues that I see we've addressed. Is that good summary?
Yeah, I think the food, food storage.
Food storage, okay, yeah.
For that, because that can attract. And I think the other important thing to note with the conditional use permit is that it is conditional and it can't be revoked.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be revoked, yeah. So and that would be, I guess, that would be the city's job, or more ideally the neighborhood to police it and make comments or raise concerns to the city. I also think the conditional aspect also refers to us imposing conditions onto these to mitigate these issues. So now I guess those are the issues. What conditions do we impose, if any?
Well, I think a lot of this, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's incumbent upon the applicant, you, to, I guess I'm going to be completely frank here. So I guess what I would have liked to have seen with this whole thing is I would have liked to have seen some kind of a structured, business plan or something that's, I mean, we're not doing eyelash extensions here. This isn't home chiropractic use. This is something that's going to impact your entire neighborhood. Not just you and the house that's adjacent to you, but 2, 3, 4 down. I mean, I see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I see a dozen more houses in there. All those folks are going to be completely and totally impacted by this. And, I mean, you're saying that you've never done this before, and, I don't really have a lot of answers to what you guys are asking me. So, I mean, I would almost say, well, maybe you want to go back to the drawing board and kind of take a look at this and kind of take a lot of what we've said here, because, maybe some of these things maybe didn't even dawn on you. I mean, hell, some of these things didn't dawn on me, and take all this and, think, well, okay, maybe I can address all these, go back to the city. Hey, this is what I've come up with. This is the way I'm going to mitigate these concerns that the Planning Commission has. And this is what's going on. So,
well, I was thinking, what if, regarding the waste, if I put it in a container and then just find a proper place to take it, say, every week I go and dispose of it where it could be properly disposed.
sure.
And if it was, like you were saying, probably less amount of dogs, say 3 extra dogs, like count 4 counting my dog.
But this still doesn't mitigate the concerns that that Josh came up with, the Commissioner Sunloff came up with. I mean, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Food, I could store it, like I do with my dog food.
What kind of dog do you have?
A Great Pyrenees.
Okay.
One of those containers that any animals will be getting into it. And the other thing is I could probably just feed the dogs at home, which is what usually would happen with the other dogs that would stay at their own house.
So you feed them at their home, not yours.
I could do that.
So you feed a dog. I mean, I don't own a dog. I don't know nothing about dogs. I don't know. You feed a dog once a day? Is that what the deal is, or?
Why?
I have cats.
They don't need to.
It's a different story. So. Okay.
And I mean, about the barking, I would definitely make sure that there are no dogs outside barking.
Because that was in the 4 issues, yeah, exactly. In the 4 instances that I received on this, yeah, that was the #1 concern. So,
And that's the hardest one to. That's the
mitigate.
hardest one to impose conditions on, and it's difficult to enforce.
Yeah, because you can't control them. That's just
No,
the
you
nature
can't.
of
No,
a lot
it's the
of
nature of
dogs,
what it
especially
is,
when
right.
you get them together. That's
Right.
where they.
And yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, Stroh, but in terms of her coming to us with a plan, but I guess I would push back on that and say that that's our job. If I'm a citizen, I'm going to come wanting to have the least amount of government intrusion in my life, and so I'm just going to say this is what I want to do. it's our job to say what are the issues, and let's try to mitigate those issues. Now, it would have made our job easier. I agree with that, and it maybe would have been a quicker path for her to get, approved, so to speak. But I think that's her doing our job for us, and we have to recognize the issues, find out what they are, and say how can they be addressed, and if so, how.
The other thing also is that I'm kind of waiting on this to go ahead and make plans on how to handle those kinds of things. Because, I mean, if it wasn't approved, then I don't even need to think about it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Which is nice because there's been many a time when people do and then ask for permission later, right?
Well, yeah. There's an instance of that today. So yeah, I get that. So.
Yeah, I don't know what to do about the barking. I think the waste can be addressed. I think we could set time parameters. I think it does sound, I think, better, at least to me, to limit it to 4 dogs, 3 extra, and then yours.
Okay.
Storing food indoors.
That almost sounds like a motion, Josh.
Well, I don't know what to do about, and I don't really feel like it's addressing anything by saying you can only let your dogs out, the 3 dogs out twice a day or whatever. I don't know if that would be.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a certain amount of discretion that you as a business owner doing this needs to take into account, being, take into consideration the neighbors, and then even the neighbors. I mean, if this were granted, they've kind of got to police it too a little bit if it does become a nuisance. But I agree. I think we can mitigate everything except for the barking. And is it going to bark more between 4 dogs and 6 dogs? I don't know. Yeah. But it seems to me that seems to be more manageable and seems to be at least saying that we're trying to be considerate of your application and also considerate of those that have expressed concerns and trying to come up with something that works.
So let's say hypothetically, and maybe this is a question for Andy. Let's say hypothetically, we grant a conditional use with some of the general conditions we've discussed, and then there is a complaint later on about too much barking. That comes to the city, and what would the city say, and
how do you determine what is too much barking?
Yeah, right. I mean, that's such a moving target. I don't know how to impose a condition on something that's so, loose.
It's pretty subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah. In that case, like any other conditional use permit, if we receive a complaint, the first thing we do is go and try to verify the complaint and see if it's legitimate. And then we look at what can be done to mitigate that issue. Mm-hmm. So I personally think that maybe even limiting the number of dogs to start, like any conditional use, if we receive numerous complaints, it can come back in for review. If we don't receive any complaints and she wants to go from 4 dogs to 6 dogs, she can come in a year and apply to alter the conditional use permit to allow more pets based on how things are working. So I think you take your best shot at it if you're comfortable with it, and we monitor it, and if there's complaints, we look at it again. If things go really well and they want to increase, we could look at that as well.
How many, I guess we could start with the R1A, and maybe it applies broadly across all residential zones. How many dogs can just an average Joe homeowner have as a pet?
2.
Okay, 2. So we would be increasing that by 2 if we went to 4 total.
That's correct.
So the restrictions of
not relevant to zoning until you get to the agricultural zones.
So like RA would?
All R1 zones are
R1s.
2 pets. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, 2. So 2 pets, or 2 dogs and 4 cats and
2 pets.
2 pets. Okay. How many cats do you have, Stro? I'm just kidding.
That's funny.
Okay.
Too. Just throwing that out there.
So-
Well, I mean, so I guess
yeah.
based on staff recommendation, we can set some loose parameters here. Set a time frame, reduce the number of dogs from 6 to 4, which the applicant seems okay with. Hey, you got to store your food inside. Waste has to be gone every third day or twice a week or something or whatever. And then I guess, like you said too, you leave it to the dozen or so homeowners that are in immediate vicinity of this house. And, hey, if a complaint comes in, then we address it and then we kind of move forward from there. So it's kind of the way that I see it. So. I mean, I'd like to talk about this all night, but I mean, I'm looking at a lot of stuff that's in front of us, so, but I guess that's kind of where
So, and really what we're talking about is what do we do with the additional impact of 2 more dogs? Because in theory, she could have 2.
She could, sure, true, right, 2, right, so, yeah.
I like Andy's suggestion is let's start with the 4 as you suggested. And if there's not any complaints, it's going well, then the applicant
And then
can
you
come
has to
back.
kind of allow it to police itself.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
And then the hours, is it, 6 to 4?
Yeah,
7 to
you're right. How
7 to
does that
5,
work?
7 to
Right.
6, what
And
are
I
the
think we
hours?
set, as far as hours are concerned, I mean, I don't think, this isn't like, we're not talking about the zoo here or anything where there's summer hours and winter hours. I think we probably need to set something with a
I think
broad,
split the difference and say 7 to 7.
that's fine.
Yeah, the only concern I have with the 7 to 7, I'd maybe say like 7 to 6, because one of the complaints we had was they wanted to be able to go out in the backyard, have a barbecue, have a dinner, and have some quiet enjoyment.
Sure.
And that would typically 6-ish or so.
Sure.
So that would be my
6,
suggestion.
okay,
Maybe
yeah.
maybe like 7 to 6.
Sure, reduce it.
And
That's fine.
that way, I think it would you be amenable to that? Does that work for you as well?
Sure.
Sounds like it. So.
All right, well then, motion?
Josh has a list there.
You want to
You gonna make me? You make me make the motion? Okay. So I'll make a motion that we grant a conditional use permit for major home occupation B, doggy daycare, for Stella Allred at 1583 South Hay Creek Drive, with the following conditions, and feel free to add or change as we go through this so we're all on the same page. One that I'm intentionally going to make this a little ambiguous, but give it parameters. That the waste be controlled, both the smell and the quantity. So, however that is accomplished, that means that it might have to be taken out every few days, has to be enclosed so that the smell is not getting out. So that's the first one. 2, the time frame. So from 7 a.m. till 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. is when the additional dogs can be there, and the total number of dogs would be 4. So 1 plus, actually 2 allowed by zone plus an additional 2 is reality what we're saying. And then the food would be stored. Any pet food, dog food would be stored indoors, and that would include a garage in my mind. Did I address most of those enough?
We need to add no overnight.
Yeah, so I guess that's implied in the timing, but yeah, no overnight pets or dogs that staying there other than the ones allowed by zone.
Second.
Is it me?
I think it's Stroh.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Thanks.
Does that make sense? You get it?
Does that mean yes or no?
Yes, it means
Yeah,
yes.
3-1, pass.
And you can talk to staff or Andy for the requirements.
I'm not sure why we
Yes,
talk like pirates.
So another.
All right, next up, 2F, conditional use permit for major home occupation B, handyman for Mr. Tyson Webster at 86 West Shepherd Lane. Andy.
We're back to the more common ones, handyman service. Apparently Mr. Webster does minor repairs, doesn't require contractor license. I think, as I recall, he had a little bit of a contract with some company that primarily his employer. Minor tools that he just keeps in his vehicle or in his garage. Mostly the home is for the office and the place of business. So we have several handymans around town. Seem to work very well.
Okay, thanks. Tyson Webster, you here this evening? Gotcha. We'll get with you if we need you. I think this seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that no customers will be coming doesn't seem like anything is going to be stored.
No truck, no trailer.
Yeah.
Right, nothing.
Easy one.
Nope.
With that, I'll make a motion then. Make a motion that we grant a conditional use permit for major home occupation B, handyman, for Tyson Webster at 86 West Shepherd Lane.
I'll second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Next, number 3, rezone of 4 acres at 292 West Blooming Grove Circle from A1, light agriculture, to R120, single-family residential zoning, with the PRUD overlay zone. We do have a public hearing with this.
I'm going to suggest that we consider item number 4. They're
Yeah, that's where I was
related.
That's where I was going to go with this
Hold the hearing
too.
at the same
So,
time.
public hearing is actually for number 4. The rezone is for number 3. We can probably open up a public hearing, right? First, I mean, since those two are going to be combined.
Both items require hearing, so the comments will likely be similar. So suggest
Yeah.
Public hearing on the rezone.
that's a different zone.
Oh,
So we did.
So we just have one public hearing.
Sure.
Cover both items.
okay. All right.
Just quick introduction.
Yeah,
Ready for that?
right, for Dana and Josh Griffin. So, yeah, go ahead.
We looked at this property a few weeks ago. They came in and requested the R1LD zone. There were some concerns with that. It was tabled. Subsequently, they withdrew that application, submitted an application for the R120 zone. This property's down on the end of Blooming Grove Circle, on the southwest part of town. See it highlighted here on the map. It's currently A1. The property surrounding it is primarily R120. They've now requested R120 zone. As they looked at their property a little closer, they determined that they could plat it into 4 lots, including the existing home, and meet all the requirements of the R120 zone. The PRED overlay zone is included because they've requested a private lane to service those lots. It would essentially follow the pattern of the existing driveway. As it is on a cul-de-sac, they would essentially extend the cul-de-sac with a private lane. It still meets the total distance requirements that we have in the zone. One other minor issue, currently they have a barn or an outbuilding here. In normal zoning, we don't allow accessory buildings in the front yard. Technically, it's in the front yard now. I'm not sure how it got there. But there is an accessory building here with the home back here. It would remain part of that lot. Under the PRUD, it allows for some variation in zoning requirements if you're comfortable with that. So just to mention that so everybody's aware.
Okay. All right, thanks, Andy. All right, so let's open up the public hearing on this for items 3 and 4 with regard to rezone of 4 acres and then the final or the preliminary plat at 292 West Blooming Grove Circle. Anyone here for that? Going once, going twice, 3 times a lady. All right.
You're too slow.
Right. Yeah, nice, right? Throwing it all together. All right.
Anyway, Dennis Hepworth, 220 West Bear Creek Drive, Kaysville. A neighbor of this property. When the applicant came in a couple weeks ago, I was spoke my opposition to the initial application.
Right, I remember, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm on record as opposing that.
You are,
but,
yes.
I felt like now that these changes have been made that I'm compelled to throw out my support for the changes that they've made.
Okay.
I'm in total favor of it. I
Okay.
think they've done a great job of addressing the concerns. So
I do have to say, I do echo your sentiments, Mr. Hepworth. I looked at this when I first saw this plat last week. I think that they've done a very commendable job of mitigating concerns and being mindful with the neighborhood and things along those lines. So
yes, I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah, very good then. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Anyone else?
I'm feeling really nervous.
No, don't be nervous. It's all right. Just pull the mic down so we can get you on record here. There you go.
Okay, so I'm Lindsay Jones, and I live right next door on that really long lot, 276 Blooming Grove Circle.
So you live right there.
Yep.
Do you own all that property back there?
Yeah.
So what's that big, is
well,
that a field back there?
Yeah, now it's not. That's an old picture. That's like at least 3 years old. But
Okay.
so you can kind of see a fence. There's the pasture, and then there's like an empty lot back that's on the other circle. So we own the pasture all the way. Yeah, there's the line. Yes, right there. That's all
Back way in the back there. Okay.
Yeah.
This RA.
So all of that is ours. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I just wanted to say we're okay with the. I don't speak this language. I don't even know. So I guess I do want to ask, like, what are those zones and what does that mean exactly?
So an R120 zone.
Yeah.
So the 20 refers to 20,000 square foot lots.
Okay.
So that means how big physically, how big the lot
in this
can
case,
be, the lot
just
size.
barely under half acre.
Yeah,
lots.
just barely,
Just barely
under
under
half
half
acre
acre.
lots.
Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, we feel okay with that. We initially moved there because we love the openness of the land, and yeah, so.
Have you seen the plot? Have you seen
Yes.
what they? Okay, you
Yes,
do, and you're okay with that too.
I'm okay with that, and their little outbuilding there it's really pretty. It's really nice. So I wouldn't have a concern about moving that or anything either.
Okay.
So that's all. I just wanted to
Okay.
double check.
That wasn't too nervous, right? I mean, look at that. You're embarking on public
Well,
speaking now.
I'll be back because all my neighbors are rezoning.
I know they are. I thought, what the hell's going on in this neighborhood? Man, everybody lose their mind all at once, or what?
Andy, can you go back to the zoning map?
You should. You might as well hop on the bandwagon.
Well, I mean, you asked what that zone means. It means that it's going to be like all of this stuff to the east of you. That's all R120. That just means this is going to be R120.
By chance, do you know what mine is?
Yours is
Yours is
A1.
A1.
It's agriculture.
Agricultural, yes.
Yeah.
Which means it's
You're gonna be
it's
an
less
island of
you will be.
A1.
Yeah, it's a little less restrictive than R1. Yeah, right. Lindsay, that's fabulous. All right, so
Yeah, she'll be back in about a month.
She will. Yeah, she'll be back in a few minutes here for the next one. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and close the public hearing on this. Good. We're good. Mayor Witt, you have anything to add on this, or are you good? You're good. Okay, good. Thumbs up. All right, so we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll open it up to us here. Let me first just throw out my sentiments on this here. Like I had explained to Mr. Hepworth, I'm really, after last month, at our meeting last month, I have to say that I'm really, really pleased and really, really happy with the way that this came back and the way that this looks, and this preliminary plat, to me, looks to be in pretty good order and pretty good shape. So,
yeah, I'd agree. They took under consideration and actually implemented and changed the recommendations that we made to go to the R120, and then listened to the neighbors, and so they to me they made a lot of good faith in trying to answer those concerns.
So I wasn't here last time, so I'm only evaluating it on what I see here. And to me, it it's essentially just being swallowed up into this zone that's right next to it. So it's not like it's drastically changing the character of the neighborhood.
No.
It is quite compatible with the neighborhood. I don't even think once all these homes get built on these other 3 lots, some average Joe driving through there wouldn't even notice a drastic change from what is surrounding it. And the density is such that it's not near what we've done in other places in West Kaysville, and that's the other D word in West Kaysville. And so I don't have a problem with it.
Tom?
I think it's a good example of listening to our recommendations a month ago. I think it would have been met with, probably would have been approved, but would not have had the same positive lean that I think we have right now.
Yeah.
It's a good job of listening to the neighbors and some recommendations and making changes. I think it's well done.
I like that they, with the flag lot and the public safety concerns we had too. I mean, it's not just the R120. It was public safety concerns as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it seems that the whole thing was mitigated and addressed from top to bottom.
Yeah, they did a good job.
Dana and Josh Griffin, are you guys here this evening? Good. Kudos to you guys for stepping up to the plate here and pleasing everybody. And that's good. It's not every time that we see something like this where everybody steps away from something that's applauded on all sides. So with that said, I guess we'll get a motion. We need to view these as 2 separate motions. Yeah. So I guess we'll go with number 3 first, and then for the approval of a rezone, and then number 4 will grant the preliminary plat approval. So if we got motions.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we recommend approval of the rezone of 4 acres at 292 West Bloomington Grove Circle from A1 Light Agricultural to R120 Single Family Residential Zoning District with the PRUD planned residential development overlay zone for Dana and Josh Griffith.
I'll second.
Aye.
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 And then number 4 for the preliminary plat.
I will.
It's not. It's,
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, did I already do that?
I don't think you added the plat in there.
No, you didn't.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, I didn't. No, that's right. I stopped right there. Okay. We'll just continue and recommend approval for preliminary plat approval for the 4 acres at 292 West Bloomington Grove Circle for Dana and Josh Griffin.
I'll second that again.
Aye.
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 Awesome. Thank you. All right, moving forward, but staying in the same neighborhood, we will go to number 5, public hearing and request to rezone 0.64 acres of property at 269 West Blooming Grove Circle from R120 to R110 to include a PRUD overlay zone for Julie and Scott Edwards, staff.
This is just across the street to the south. We looked over here, now we're looking at this lot here. This lot, as you mentioned, is about 2/3 of an acre. It's a little over 30,000 square feet. Currently zoned R120. As we can see on the map, you can see that good. In that same area. The request is to rezone the property to R110 with the intent of getting a second building on the property. You look back at the aerial photograph. Property fairly large, well, like I said, 2/3 of an acre. Contains an existing single-family home on it. The desire is to put a second house on the property, with the home taking up the bulk of the frontage that's available. The reason for the PRUD overlay is it would likely end up being a flag lot with the second structure being in the back. So again, the request is for the R110 zone, which is 10,000 square foot lots. In this case, there's about 30,000 square feet. The lots would be slightly bigger than that. And then the PRUD to allow a flag lot on the property. Clearly, at this point, there's not enough space on the property in its existing zone to do a flag lot. So if the R110 is determined to not be acceptable, then there's probably no action needed on the PRUD overlay.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. With that being stated, let's go ahead and open the public hearing on 269 West Blooming Grove with the rezone. Anyone here to speak on that issue here? Mr. Hepworth. Lindsay, are you following suit with this one? Okay.
Me again.
All right, good.
I guess I would be in opposition of this for the same reason that I was on the application across the street, and that's the fact that breaking this up into smaller lots, it's not compatible with the surrounding lots, and it would end up with even a smaller lot than what was being suggested across the street. And I don't know if there's any issues with the setback on the smaller lot when you would build a house there, but I would let staff address that and deal with that. But my bigger concern, again, is just the simple fact that you're putting a small lot right in the middle of other lots that are R120, so it's just not compatible with the surrounding homes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I understand that, yep.
My husband spoke with Scott Edwards for a while about his plans.
Could you move the mic down a little bit further?
Sorry.
Thanks. That's fine.
And we feel okay about his plans currently to build back there. My concern just is in the future. There is a narrow lot right next that borders his property. There's the creek that runs through, and there's a lot between his property and the creek that's really small. Yeah, right there. And so my concern is if, perhaps he sells the lot or sells the land and somebody annexes that, would we then end up with 3 or 4 homes in that little tiny area? Anyway, so same thing as Mr. Hepworth. Just
Well, that-
I guess I'm just
To address, go ahead.
So, Andy, is this a lot right here?
It's part of this lot.
So it's all one
That's
contiguous
all one
piece.
contiguous piece of property.
And just
and
correct
they
me if
have mentioned at one point years ago that they would be interested in maybe selling that. So it's a possibility that they might try and sell that section.
Well,
I
so-
don't know anything about anything
Yeah.
except for what I've heard.
Sure.
So I might
So-
just be sharing.
But let's just go down that rabbit hole for a second. Let's say they wanted to sell this. Let's just hypothetically say they would cut it off right here. Andy, let's say, just for fun, let's say there's a property line right there from that cul-de-sac over to Shepherd Lane. This is now a separate lot. This is a lot that they wanted to subdivide or do something with. That's not a buildable lot, is it? Could they even build something on there?
It'd be
A dwelling?
marginal because the stream runs through that property.
Well, but I'm just saying setback-wise.
Setback-wise, you couldn't do it.
And it depends what zoning it is. If it were to be the R110 zone, that's a 30-foot front yard and a 15-foot rear yard.
Yeah, well, and
That's
I
probably
think it's a stretch to say it's R110, but yeah, I see.
Well, it's not right now.
Yeah,
but
right.
regardless.
I guess what I'm saying is I see your point. That is possible, but I don't think it's likely,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Can you put the zoning back up, Andy? Because it looks like that's zoned A5, and the other half of their lot is a different zone. The portion we're talking about is already a different zone, isn't it?
So if somebody
kinda hard to see. I'm
potentially
just not sure.
bought
Yeah,
that
right
whole
there, it's,
thing,
It looks like there's already a division between where their house is and this little strip we're talking about.
Yeah, and what happens on occasion is zoning occurs and then lot lines are adjusted. I think if you've been around here a long time, this road was realigned. It used to go more this way and then cut down. When that road was rebuilt and relocated down to here, that was, the road that got vacated was still in the A5 zone, and it got deeded to the abutting property owner, or the owner who had it prior. So it went back to that parcel, so that's why the zone is different.
Creative developers.
Well, but yeah, it'd be, in theory, there'd be checks and balances on that I would think would mitigate it. But so here's, just to change this channel just a second. Here's my thought. Maybe a year, 2 years ago, I don't know, I lose track of time. We had a application for, it was similar in intent, I think. There's these 2 or 3 homes, pretty, really nice, big homes right over here, and one of the existing owners wanted to come in and put a home, like shoehorn it in between these other 2 homes. You guys remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
And at least speaking from myself, the reason why I voted against that is because, Andy, can you go back to a aerial with just that shows the rooftops and, yeah. Here's the reason why I voted against it. They wanted to put that home like literally right there.
Yeah.
And if you just, I might have even said this back then, if you just took this and created black and white, all the rooftops or buildings were black and the rest was white, you would see there is a pretty consistent spacing of buildings. If you stick a building in there, it disrupts that consistency, it did in my opinion. Similarly here, if you put a building right there, it disrupts the consistency of the layout, the spacing, the openness of the existing zone that is out there. So, that seems to me to weigh against it in my mind.
Are you good with your comments then?
Yeah, I think
we shouldn't be deliberating, I guess,
my
right?
concern is I think we're okay. With speaking with Scott Edwards, it just was a small, mother-in-law type apartment in the back. We're okay with that. We're just concerned about, if somebody else in the future buys it, could they subdivide it, further, or are we going to end up with more houses? And
Well, the zone goes with the property, so I mean, once
Right.
whatever we decide to end up doing here, I mean, it's there until it
so,
gets
yeah, that's
changed
my concern
again, so.
with me not knowing anything about it.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Once, twice, 3. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this, and we'll open it up. We've already had some discussion here. I've got, which is good because it helps kind of push things along. There's one, again, obviously with the agenda that's this lengthy and stuff, we as the commission obviously get phone calls and emails and things and stuff along those lines and that. So, so what was brought to my attention is that the Edwards don't currently reside in this home on Blooming Grove Circle. Is that correct? Are the Edwards here?
They are.
Okay. Is that a true statement? You guys do not live in that house. So you don't live in that house, right? Correct. Okay, good. All right. Do you have any? I guess yeah. Why don't one of you guys could come forward here because I'm sure we're going to have a litany of questions and concerns here and stuff. You guys have absolutely no intention of moving back into that home, right? What's so funny? Are we laughing or joking? What?
No,
you don't live
making
there.
fun of Lindsay 'cause
Oh,
I'm
right.
so sure.
Okay. So you don't live there. You have no intentions of living there. You have no plan. Is it a rental? Mm-hmm. Is there a current occupant in that home?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess is it your aging parents then that you're wanting to build this for?
My father just passed away, and my mom needs to be closer to us. She lives like an hour north, and she has a lot of property.
And so with her, so how far do you live from this piece then?
We're just off the screen.
Okay, so you're a little further up the north or east?
Right
There.
here.
Okay, so kind of north or east. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
We've set, the plan we submitted shoves that house as far back to that corner as possible.
Yeah. From what I've seen and from the way that I read this, I mean, I've been doing this for a number of years now, an R110 zone is not even applicable here, the way that I read it and the way that I see it. And I think that that's probably something that might be a shared, I mean.
Not applicable meaning you don't think it fits?
Yeah, it doesn't fit. I see that there's a couple of ways to mitigate and to circumvent this by attaching a breezeway and then attaching it to the existing home. Of course, that could pose problems and issues with, with you moving that home forward as a rental property and things along those lines. But that's something that I guess that you would have to deal with. But as far as building a home back there, I guess I just don't, I don't see it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I have a hard time with the R110 as well. You know, the example that we just went through across the street, that one I can't remember if they're coming in for it was an R112 or an R1
LD.
Or an LD. That's right, it was an LD.
Yeah, it was LD.
You know, and we didn't feel that conformed. Plus, some of it is the lot size. You know, the shape, lot shape, makes it a little bit more challenging, especially this size. It's, you know, kind of that triangular shape. It makes it very challenging and difficult. And you've kind of, in my opinion, looking at it, that is kind of shoehorned into it. And I would tend to agree that I just don't think an R110 fits the general plan. I don't think it fits and conforms to the surrounding neighborhood and community and the surrounding zoning. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Andy, I don't know if you could get this at the ready, and I should have done a little more research, but is there a single portion of Kaysville west of I-15 that has R110?
There's not.
Not a single ounce of property west of I-15 is R110.
I believe that's correct. We have a couple of spots of R14.
Right.
Right.
And it might be argued there are some areas that while they're not technically R110, there might be some 10,000 square foot lots, but that's a separate issue.
That's correct.
And, you know, I one of my initial thoughts was why do we care to, you know, what's the rationale for restricting flag lots on cul-de-sacs? And so, you know, we could go down that, but I don't think it's going to be a fruitful discussion in this context, because even if I wanted to put flag lots on cul-de-sacs, this, in my mind, is just not a good spot for it. I think the intention is noble, and I get that, and I wish we could, at least in my mind, make it work. But it kind of like what I said earlier, it disrupts the character of the neighborhood too much, and I like to look at especially rezone applications on their own merits. But having said that, it does feel awfully similar in my mind to this one that was a year or two ago that's adjacent. They wanted to, I think they were going to either have their family live in it, or they were going to live in it as a retirement, you know, sort of final home, and they were trying to shoehorn it into these other buildings that were there. That feels like what's happening here. And, you know, it just doesn't feel like it fits for the character. There's no other R110, and it's on a flag lot on a cul-de-sac. So that's where I'm at.
Tom?
Andy, or maybe for the Edwards, does the property line to the west, southwest there, does that abut the stream? Is that the property demarcation, or is it over slightly? Where does the stream run through there?
Probably where those trees are at.
There's a dirt road just west right there, and then the stream is where all the trees are.
The Old County Road is
before
there.
you hit the road. So, yeah, I don't see how that would ever be possible to put anything there.
I agree with that. I don't think there's anything going in there,
no,
building-wise.
I'm not looking at that as much, and I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but maybe to approach that landowner and say, look, we've got a dirt road that's doing nothing. Attempt to purchase that and get a bigger lot. I would be more open to something like that if you came and said, look, we've purchased this land, we've been able to extend it out. We're not literally up against the limits. As I look at these plans, I mean, it looks like a nice-sized house, but you are literally touching the lines. And I think a different zone, a little bit more space. That's where my question was with the stream. You're going to have limitations as to what you can build up to the stream. But if you've got a dirt road there that is doing nothing, that also eliminates your neighbor's questions of, can someone build in this little tiny area? If you take a portion of that, you're decreasing the lot size for anyone potentially to even remotely try and be creative and go, how could we stretch this out? I would be more inclined to vote for a larger size lot. I mean, it's a cost on your part because you'd have to approach your neighbor and see if they're even interested in selling, but I think that opens the door for more possibilities.
It makes PRUD a little bit more applicable. In this case, it's kind of like we're kind of trying to use it, PRUD, kind of cheat it a little bit to try to make it fit, because it's a way to try to make it fit, but it just to me it just doesn't work.
So outside of the obvious financial component of this, why not move your mother into the existing home?
Because we have a renter there.
Well, they're obviously going to move out sooner or later, right? I mean, it's your home. Why go through all this, which is obviously going to be denied? I mean, and then move forward to, look at it and say, well, okay, we already have an existing home here. We're going to have to give up, I don't know, whatever your rent is there, but I mean, that's a viable option, I suppose. I mean, of course, it impacts you financially, but instead of chasing, I mean, land's expensive, and I get that. I mean, Tom's suggestion, buying and purchasing and then, adding on and annexing and rearranging lot lines and things along those lines, I mean, you're looking at a potential, I mean, hell, what, 50, 60, 100,000, 150,000? I mean, I don't know how much, that's going to look at, but, I mean, so.
That's kind of a split-level home. There's several reasons at her age that won't work, but we've looked at lots of things like that.
Not
just
stairs.
we offered,
Sure.
Every option we can think of at
Okay.
this point.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle because I'm one, I think my record would reflect this, to let people do what they want to do, generally speaking, with their property.
Yeah.
But when we are looking at the general plan, we're looking at the surrounding area, we also have to make a planning-based decision and say, does this fit with the character of the neighborhood? And for I think many of the reasons I've already said, I don't think it does.
Right. All right. So based on that, motion. Any other comment? I think we pretty much talked this.
I think so.
Motion or
So do we have to have two motions here then, Andy?
I
The
think
rezone and the,
That's
is
all.
there no plat?
There is no plat.
There's no
Okay.
plat.
It's the
So just
rezone, okay.
one on the zones.
So I'll make a motion that we recommend denial of a rezone from R120 to R110 and the PRUD for Julian Scott Edwards at this property.
second.
Aye.
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 Just quick comment. This is just a recommendation. You can still carry this forward, and this is for the public to understand as well. This still can go to the city council with a negative recommendation if you choose to do that. So we'll get hold of you in the next couple of days and see how you want to proceed. It won't go on next week's agenda. Based on that agenda, was supposed to have gone out this afternoon. So in 3 weeks is when it would appear if you choose to pursue it based on this recommendation.
Thank you.
In other words, the city council could disagree with us and they might
That's correct.
go in favor of it.
They've done that.
They've
a time or
never
two.
done that before.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so the public,
Usually they're pretty good.
keep an eye on that and call us.
Yeah. On to number 6, public hearing and request to rezone 2.0 acres of property at 427 West Burton Lane from RA, residential agriculture, to R1LD, single-family low density, for Miss Rosemary Lindsay.
We also have the preliminary plat as the next item.
Oh, yes, and we can, I'm sorry, my apologies.
You're fine.
We can connect number 7 in there, which again is the public hearing, but we'll bridge the public hearing and have just one for the preliminary plat approval for the Lindsay subdivision located at the aforementioned address.
This property is just a little bit up the road from where we've been looking. This is Burton Lane, and this is Sunset Drive. Properties are located there on the southeast corner. There's 2 homes on 3 lots currently. The request is to rezone those 3 lots from their current RA zoning, which is residential agricultural, requiring a full half-acre lot. They've requested to rezone it to the R1LD, which would 2 units per acre, but with some flexibility in lot size, with the idea of taking those 3 lots and making it into 4 lots. As I understand it, both owners here are related, and they own this lot back here as well. They're getting tired of mowing the big lawns. They would like to have a nice home on a little bit smaller lot. So under the R1LD zone, they could take this 2 acres that exists there and still meet the 2 unit per acre requirement with 4 lots. This would be the new lot line. This is the old lot line here for this undeveloped lot. That would leave the 2 homes in front. This lot would be unaffected in the split, but be used for density, so it wouldn't be able to further subdivide under the LD zoning in the future. And these lots then, I think this one's close to 12,000 square feet, which is the minimum in the LD zone. Obviously, the other 2 are significantly larger, and this one's still the 3/4 acre. Again, it does meet the requirements of the LD zone under the 2 unit per acre criteria. So that's what the proposal we have before us.
Thank you, Andy. Let's go ahead then and open the public hearing on both of these agenda items for both the rezone and the preliminary plat approval. If there's anyone here this evening that wishes to speak on this, take that no motion as a no. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll go ahead and open it up here to the commission.
I believe the applicants are here as well.
Oh, they are. Rosemary Lindsay is here. Okay. We might call on you. So, well, yeah, come on up. That's fine. Sure. You bet. Good deal. Thanks for coming out. If we have questions in that, so open it up here. To me, this looks pretty straightforward and in pretty good order. I mean, it does meet the zone. I mean, you have Sunset Drive and Burton Lane, which are, designated as main roads. It does meet the half acre, requirement in that, with the 4 lots being, 2 acres being subdivided out into 4 lots. It does look pretty straightforward. So you live in the home on the upper left, correct? Right. Okay. And I spoke in great length this morning, or this afternoon, actually, to your brother-in-law, Brett, yes, who lives there, and he obviously didn't have any concerns or issues or anything with any of it, so he just wanted to chime in and give his support and stuff, and so that's where we're at. Anyone else?
Both lots open up onto Sunset, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, again, I like to look at things individually on their own merits, but if we compare them, it gives a good idea to see, at least my thinking. This one, in contrast to, say, the last one or others that have come before us, this one, there are other pockets of LD spread around Kaysville, in this area of Kaysville. And so, I wouldn't say we've set a precedent there, but it had, the character of this area is such that this is not completely out of character I do think also that when there becomes two, dwellings here on these lots, that the spacing is such that it's not as drastic of spacing as what we saw just last time or in other cases. The spacing is still relatively maintained in terms of the feel of the area. And so it seems this one, for at least those reasons, seems to me in line with the general plan and what is already existing in the area. So,
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that without question. So, and I think it does stand on its own merits too. I mean, individually and collectively, as we look at the entire lay of, the western part of Kaysville and how this kind of flows, and what's here before us. Again, I don't have any issues with this.
And Sunset is a major street.
It is, yeah.
As
Well,
defined
so's
in
Burton,
the
and so's
code.
Burton Lane, too.
Burton is too. So two major streets that we're basically right next to.
Right.
So-
I mean, it's a corner lot on two of the most major streets in
Essentially,
West Kaysville,
right.
yeah.
I agree with both of you. It does conform, I think, to the general plan and the intent.
Tom? Good?
Yeah, I'm good. In fact, if you're fine, I'll make a motion.
Sure, go ahead.
I move that we recommend approval of the rezone of 2 acres at 427 West Burton Lane from RA Residential Agriculture to the R1LD Single Family Low Density for Rosemary Lindsay.
Second.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Well, we got one more for you here, too. But yeah, you're good.
We might
Sure.
reject the second one, so you might want to hang in there.
We'll give you the rezone, but we're not giving you the plat, so.
Okay, we'll try the plat as well. We recommend approval of the, where are we at here?
Lindsay subdivision.
Of the Lindsay subdivision preliminary plat at 427 West Burton Lane for Rosemary Lindsay.
I'll second that as well.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
All
You
that
bet.
stress for nothing.
Have a good evening. You bet. All right. Moving forward, agenda item number 8, planning final plat approval for the Preserve subdivision, Phase 1, located at 101 South Angel Street for Symphony Homes. Andy.
We've looked at this a few times recently in the preliminary plat and rezone stages. You may recall the Preserve subdivision is just south of 2nd North, which is right across the top of the picture, and a little bit east of Angel Street. This is the first phase for final plat approval. So was the preliminary plat, which was ultimately approved by the City Council. Phase 1 is the outlined area here. Individually, it looks like that. The lots all conform with the LD zone, and as you compare it, it's very much identical to the preliminary plat, which has been approved as well. The one concern that came up in the preliminary plat approval with some of the neighbors is construction access, particularly as the homes are under construction. What Symphony Homes agreed to was that before they built any homes in the first phase, they would construct a temporary construction access road from Angel Street into the subdivision. So that would be available for construction equipment as homes were being built to eliminate some of the traffic off the adjacent property. The other thing that I would like to make you aware of is our ordinance states that any stub road that's intended to be extended in the future that goes more than 1 lot deep from an intersection needs to have adequate turnaround facility. And there's a few ways that can be done. The ideal way is they put a bulb on the end. In this case, they don't own that property, and it's unlikely the property owner would be willing to give up that property for a temporary turnaround. They've stated in the past in public meeting they don't intend to develop anytime in the near future. You can do a temporary turnaround inside in the lots. That tends to create some issues. The houses either get set back too far or they're very close to that temporary turnaround. Symphony's done this before and it seems to work well. Our fire department's looked at it and approved it. They will use the driveways of these two end lots, grant us a temporary turnaround easement, oversize those driveways, and create a hammerhead turnaround facility there. So that's not something that we've done a bunch of. We have done it once or twice, and it seems to be much more effective and less impacting than the traditional bulb turnarounds. So, other than that, this meets the requirements of the preliminary plat and other applicable ordinances, and so we're ready to recommend final plat approval for phase 1 of the preserve subdivision.
And then just one other thing to add on to what Andy had stated. It's my understanding, well, and actually Andy conveyed this to me too, that the temporary access road, the temporary construction access road that we have on our plan here, won't actually be built or constructed until all of the infrastructure, i.e. roads, all that is all in place.
Generically, yes. They do have to install a sewer line, and they'll put the road over the top of that.
Right.
Is that going to be a blacktop road, a gravel road?
It'll be road base.
Okay.
The owners of the property, I don't know if needs the right word, but would like to farm that one more season.
Right.
So they've allowed this road to be built at the end of the farm season.
End of summer, yeah.
But that will be a required improvement, so we won't issue building permits, but it is part of the construction of the subdivision, so the main body of the infrastructure could be installed before that road is fully
Actually
completed.
laid down and put, okay.
Okay.
All right, I just wanted to make that clear, so.
Yes.
Okay. I have nothing to add on this, so.
Yeah.
I don't either. We went through this all last time.
Yeah, we
Good, okay. You want a motion?
Yeah. I'll make a motion that we recommend final plat approval for Symphony Homes at approximately 150 South Angel Street.
I'll second that.
Aye.
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 All right. And let's see. Number 9, request for variance from section 1734-9 flag lot subdivision regarding the flag stem for developmental requirements for Doug and Farah Nowak at approximately 1833 South, 200 West.
Nowaks are back in our favorite part of town for tonight's meeting.
Yeah.
A little east of where we've
Time's
been.
going on there, man.
They own the property highlighted here, and the home at the back. They're desirous to split this almost 2-acre lot. I believe it is 2 acres. Make 2 1-acre lots. Build a home for their son on the other property. That's all fine. Wouldn't meet the ordinances. The issue they have as that is currently configured, this property, well, let me back up a little bit. Flag lot ordinance says that on a double flag lot, there shall be 2 minimum 18-foot stems side by side for a total of 36 feet out to the public road. As presently configured, the stem is 34 1/4 feet wide, so they're just under 2 feet shy of meeting that 36-foot requirement of the ordinance. The stem actually tapers out and gets wider as it goes back, so it's even a little bit wider than the required 36 feet by the time it gets to the back of the cul-de-sac. And this is a request for a variance. Variances are defined by state code and given a fairly strict review process of what criteria has to be met to grant a variance. I may just point out a couple quick issues. This is the subdivision plat. It shows the dimension there at 34.25 feet. I think some of the concern that was expressed in the request by the applicant is there's, over the years, this is a county ownership plat from approximately 2000. I can get oriented real quickly. This is the property here. It's a little bit difficult to see. Before everything around it was fully improved, you can see this little strip of property here. That was a separate parcel. The subdivision line went to there. They believed, or had reason to believe, that they owned or had access to some of that property. And so over time, they felt like they had plenty of room to get the 36 feet. In today's platting, that strip has gone away. It's been, however, I don't know what the survey issues occurred. But they didn't get it, and so they're now left with that 34.5 feet and not the 36 feet, which they could argue had reason to believe that they had. Again, that was some years ago. I don't know what happened. As surveys occurred, things shift slightly, but I think that's part of the basis why they think they should be considered for a variance.
Question on that: if they thought that and believed that was theirs, did they utilize that land? Did they utilize it for ingress, egress, for any type of use, to where there could be some type of a prescriptive easement or something on that?
That property's been platted. The back half is part of the school, and this lot abuts the property lines in today's platting.
So that field that's directly west of Endeavor, that's all owned by the school, correct?
That's the school playground.
The triangular piece that's there, pointing to the west.
Right.
Okay.
The applicants are here under the variance process. The burden of proof is on them. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, sir.
All right. Doug and Farah Nowak, you guys here? You guys want to come on up? So I don't know how familiar you are with the variance process. Over the years that I've been on this commission, I've had a handful of variances that have come before us collectively, and the problem with variances is there are five stipulations that it has to meet. One being literal enforcement of this title would cause unreasonable hardship for the applicant that is not necessary to carry out the general purpose of this title. So would you be assuming some kind of an unreasonable hardship if this wasn't granted? There are special circumstances. Number two is there are special circumstances attached to the property that do not generally apply to other properties in the same zone. That can be argued, I suppose. Number three, granting the variance is essential to the enjoyment of a substantial property right possessed by other property in the same zone. Number four, the variance will not substantially affect the general plan and will not be contrary to public interest. And number five, the spirit of this title is observed and substantial justice done. So I guess what's before us this evening is, does your request meet all five criteria? I would argue, variances are very hard to come by. They really are.
And our hands really
are tied with this too. Yeah, this is a state statute that's delivered before us. This isn't something, and we have to follow this to the letter. This is not something that, it's not really subjective or objective for us to kind of interject and put our own, definition in it or things along those lines. So, that being said,
along those lines, I have a comment to make. But along those lines, we act when we consider variances. We act in a quasi-judicial manner, which means we try to put our judge hats on, and we apply the law to the facts. And if the facts say that all five are met, then we grant the variance. If the facts say all five are not met, we deny the variance. So that's what we're looking at. What it really comes down to, though, is we're talking about 1 foot 9 inches, if my math is correct.
Right.
I wish variances. I wish this, and I've said this when other variances come in other contexts. I don't think variance is the mechanism here because they're so hard to come by. There's got to be some other way, and that's what I'm struggling with.
Have you approached, let me ask this question. This is something that actually came to the forefront of my mind the minute I saw this here. Have you approached your neighbors that are directly north of that stem, you know, those folks right there in that corner, and said, hey, you know, you're not going to miss 2 feet of your property.
Except that would violate the setback.
Would it?
I don't know how close that house is to the property.
Okay, all right.
Potentially.
Well, it is also graded too, so I mean, you know, so it's not 2 feet all the way because it's tapered. So, but regardless of that, I mean, that's kind of where I went first because I thought of this, you know, a variance. That's probably not. I mean, that's a difficult thing to get. You know, maybe going to your neighbors and saying, hey, you know, what do you think here? I mean, hell, not even 2 feet.
Well, I don't even think it's this neighbor. My question is, and I'm wondering what you guys have worked out or what the existing deal is. You get this is your home right here, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you access it here.
Yes.
So are they just giving you permission, or do you actually have an easement to access it? Do you know?
Yeah, we share with the Edwards.
So you've basically given them permission, or is there a recorded easement that you guys have access to? Do you know either?
This plat, this right here shows an existing easement, reciprocal easement between the 2 property owners for access.
Okay, so then my question is, and I know this might, I'm just trying to work it out here, and I'm not saying this is the answer in my mind. I'm just brainstorming. The issue is because we're trying to fit access to this property and that property. That's why we need 36 feet. Is that right?
Yes.
So because it's a double flag lot. But what I'm saying is if you just made it a single flag lot, the issue goes away, and you still have access over here. I know that's maybe not ideal with what you want, but it at least allows us to keep the integrity of the variance and our capacity in a quasi judicial manner.
What's the?
Does that make sense?
No, I get exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So for a single flag lot, what is the width?
30.
30.
So we're 4.5 feet.
That's correct.
For whatever.
Yes.
Over. Then it's not even an issue.
Yeah. But that's probably not what you want to do.
From our ordinance,
You'd rather have access to both your properties on this side, is that right?
Well, no, we'll continue to use the north, and then the home that our son would build on the 1 acre, he would enter 200 west just on that.
So he would enter from
Oh, okay.
there.
Then, Andy, you tell me what you think, because what I'm saying is you don't even need to approach this as a double flag lot. Maybe it's the city that said that. And if this is just a single flag lot, all is well.
that's correct. However,
Right, okay.
There's a however.
this is already a flag lot.
Which one?
This is its legal access. This is its practical access. This is also a flag lot with a 30-foot stem.
Oh, so that one would be violation.
So
There's gonna be a
this
double
is
one.
subdivided. That technically
Yeah.
makes this stem access to a double flag lot, and then it has to be 36, and we're back in the same position again. Unfortunately, the legal access and the actual access are not on the same location. So to meet the paper letter of the law, they have this stem here. For convenience, they've always used this driveway over here that's existed before the roads were even built in the area.
So that gives me 2 issues. One is I think it's ridiculous that we have to have this conversation over 1 foot 9 inches. I'm on your side there, right? Yeah. But that sounds like we're letting I probably see the irony here. We're letting the letter of the law get in the way of the spirit of how it's working on the ground. So I don't know. Behind what I'm saying here, implied in what I'm saying is I literally don't think I can make it work. It fit all 5 variance requirements. I just can't. Now, the other thing that I'll say that's been in my mind, I like to harken back to other examples just to in my mind. So down on Shepherd, if this map was full, down over here, we had a property just like this that I think it was a flag lot. If you just come down this way onto Shepherd, it's over here.
Yeah.
We shoehorned the variance in. And I think I was the fall guy, too, that actually went through the 5 to make it fit.
Is that the one that was against the rail trail?
That's, yes, yeah.
They actually came up with enough ownership to meet the letter. There were some other issues there that you were okay with.
Yeah, and so...
So to kind of go back then, I mean, to go to my initial conversation here, to my initial point with this is, it may be incumbent upon you to, reach out to your neighbors there that live, that are in front of you to the west. I mean, we're talking about, the width of this essentially. I mean, and if that doesn't, if that doesn't violate any kind of a setback, or if that doesn't violate, anything along those lines at all, I mean, do a lot line adjustment, a property line adjustment.
Yeah, it's not even the whole length because
no, it's not. Because like I said, it's tapered.
Up.
It's right. So you're not even,
you're maybe taking half that,
half
and it's tapering off into a long.
Right. I mean, you're gonna, buy or settle on a piece of property that, honest to God, nobody's going to, nobody would even, you wouldn't even.
Okay, so that's here I'm going to talk myself into it. I think what I said on this one over on the rail trail was, we can get creative on how this fits into all 5 criteria. The risk we run when we get creative in a quasi-judicial manner is that somebody questions our creativity and it gets overturned by, say, a district court.
Sure.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen here. So we can get creative with impunity, is what I'm saying, I think.
What I'm suggesting is to just circumvent the whole idea of trying to grant a variance to you and to look for another avenue at making this work without trying to massage and bend this whole variance process.
I'm a little more comfortable with bending city code than I am state law.
Yeah, that's the same that I am too.
Well, no, listen. Hold on. Let me make a sales pitch.
Yeah, run through each one of these like
let me
you typically do, Josh. And
I'm not bending the law. The law is the law. I'm saying we are fitting the facts
that's coming from an
into
attorney.
the law.
Right. You're an attorney.
And I'm
right.
And we're fitting the facts into the law, and no one's gonna challenge our determination.
Is the state watching this right now?
And so what? No. So what I'm saying is we are keeping the integrity of the variance process.
Sure.
We know it's 5 requirements that must be met, all 5. And so it's not like someone could later on come and say, "Oh, you throw the 5 requirements out the door at your whim." I mean, I can see how someone might say that if we tried to fit the facts in, but it doesn't make, it's not common sense to make them go try to buy a 1 foot 9 inches of strip of land and spend who knows how much money and possibly make this non-conforming, so it wouldn't even work, to take this ability to use their property how they want off the table.
So looking at the 5 then, I'm looking at them going 4 out of the 5 we can work.
What's the 5th one you're concerned about then?
Well, the one I'm looking at, I'm going literal enforcement of this title would cause an unreasonable hardship for the applicant.
Right, number 1 right off.
Number 1 is the one that I have a hard time with because they already enjoy the property. They have it. What they're trying to do is make additional accommodations that they don't currently have. But it's not, in my mind, I'm going, I don't see that as a hardship because they already
unreasonable. It's an unreasonable hardship. And so what I'm saying is there is a little bit of there is subjectivity in the word reasonable, unreasonable. So that means we can insert our subjectivity. We think it is unreasonable. Therefore, we can make it work.
Yeah, that your
But
son can't
hardship
live,
is the key in my mind.
I get it. I'm just saying, let's
But
try
I
to
totally
make it
agree
work.
because
How about this for
I'm with them
hardship?
too. I think it's ridiculous that we've got to do
I've
this.
got the hardship.
Okay.
If I refuse to give him access, he has no way to get to his home.
Well,
I believe
That
you
would
have an
take care of
easement
that
and you
first
can't.
one.
That doesn't apply because he has the
It's
30-foot
got
strip.
the easement.
Yeah.
I appreciate your creativity.
That's
Really
that's
trying
that's
here.
good.
I mean, we deny him. He's still trying to help us.
Hardship. We bought the property 22 years ago with the intent to sell for retirement, so it's going to be a hardship that we don't have our retirement.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was asking earlier. If you've
You can
if you've
still
had
sell
any
the
use
property.
on that strip that you thought you had that's gone now, and if there was, is there a way? And this would be a question for the attorney.
Have
Is there
you-
a way to get a
I
prescriptive
spent
easement or something?
about 2 hours down with the
County surveyor.
county surveyor, and we were going through all the maps and da-da-da-da-da-da for 2 hours, and he told me, he said the problem that you have had here is, because there was nothing out there for a long time.
Right.
The church owned all that property around, and then they sold, and, Adam's company bought it. And so he said, they did the parade of homes on the north of you, and then they put in that Lake Ridge Drive and did the parade of homes on the south of you. And he says, unfortunately, you've been land squeezed. He says, the earth isn't flat, it's round, and there's curvature. And
So could we use landlocked as a hardship?
Well, how about Andy? So, why is this not already a double flag lot? That is a non-conforming use.
It's all one. It's plotted as all one.
Current plat was platted as a single lot.
Oh,
Right.
So by dividing it, we create a double flag lot.
Right.
So they're trying to add an additional
right.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's perfectly in compliance today.
Right.
There's no issues that way. It's-
Got it.
Get that second lot in.
Because all the other four, in my mind, I can justify.
Being my son needs a home.
Does he have special needs or?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. No. I know.
but yeah, I
get
mean,
it.
does he
know.
have
Here's
special
the-
needs where you have to care for him? Or?
Right.
Here,
Yeah.
here, but
Of course he does.
Well, a minute ago they were going to sell their home, and now
the problem with the hardship argument that I struggle with is if I don't have case law in front of me, but I'm pretty sure I've read some before that basically says you can't self-impose the hardship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
can't.
by creating, it's already a conforming use. By wanting to create a double flag lot, they are imposing the hardship to make it not conform. So that's where I struggle. But
because they've had the enjoyment of it already. So you're right; it's a self-imposed
It
hardship.
is.
And I think we're dancing around a little bit, and we're trying real hard, but I just don't see that we're going to be able to meet these 5 variances.
No.
As much as we'd like to, and it's only 1
We
foot
can't
9
we
inch.
can't move the line.
We can't. I kind of like Stroh's recommendation as probably the best course of action.
that assumes that it doesn't violate the setback.
Well, right, but we don't
That's
know that yet.
That's
though. I mean,
incumbent on them to go and find
right.
that out.
I mean, you're in good standing with your neighbors, I'm assuming. Right? I mean, have you talked to them about this? I mean,
No, we just went with the variance thing because that was what was requested.
Sure.
So-
Right.
Okay.
But no, we have not talked to the neighbors.
Okay.
I don't want to go that route because I don't think that it can be done. I want it somehow worked out right now because I don't want to have to come back and say, oh, now that option's gone.
Well,
Now
you.
let's go ahead and do this.
But so here's the thing. I mean, if you did go that route, you wouldn't have to come back before us because it would meet everything, and it would be. I mean,
Back as just a
Well,
subdivision.
you'd come back as just a subdivision. I mean, I got to be honest with you,
We
folks,
won't
right
have to
now.
make this-
The variance. I'm not trying to prognosticate my 3 fellow commissioners here, but I really don't. I don't see how it's going to work. I don't see how it's going to be granted. And like I said, it's not. I mean, I'm fighting for you with this. I get it. I understand it. I mean, if it were me, I'd be thinking, come on, for Christ's sakes. I mean, we're looking at 1 foot 9 inches here. I mean, you know, what are we talking about? But again, though, we're hamstrung here by state law and state ordinance. I mean, this isn't here in Kaysville. I mean, this is on a level that's higher than we are, and it has to meet these criteria. So
let me, two things that are separate. When a judge makes a decision, let's say, you know, there's this thing in the law, if Matt were here, it's called summary judgment. Gets rid of a case, in theory, early on, where a judge says, okay, look, I apply the facts that I know that we know exist, that both parties agree on, or that are undeniable, and we apply it to the law, and they make a decision. It could be a completely wrong decision, like totally arbitrary and capricious, or whatever the standard is. If nobody appeals it, the decision stands. Now, it might get appealed to a court of appeals, and the court of appeals say, what was the district judge thinking when they made this decision, when they applied these facts to this law? There's no way they should have granted summary judgment, and the appeals court would overturn it. But if it never gets appealed, then that arguably stupid decision by that judge stands, because in his or her mind, he or she was applying the law to the facts.
Well, right.
And so what I'm saying is and that judge might have been shoehorning it in just to make sure a stupid result didn't come out of it. And I think we can do that here. This would be a ridiculous result if we said you can't do this over 1 foot 9 inches, because what are we concerned about? We want wide enough access to double flag lots. Well, do we think that 34.25 feet is drastically different than 36? I think we would all probably say no. And so why don't we try to make this work on the 5, and then we've upheld the integrity of state law. We've just, in our minds, made what the facts worked on the 5. Maybe somebody else would disagree with that, but guess what? No one's going to question it. It's not going to get appealed. Well, and no one's going to care that no one's even going to notice that it's 34.25 inches when they drive by.
If it's granted, though, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if it's granted, and then you build a home and stuff, and then it gets appealed, I mean, it's not like.
Appeal it?
Well, no. Well,
there's limitation
the state
on
might. I mean,
on time to appeal a decision.
Okay,
but it wouldn't be like they'd say, well, you need to raise your home, and
does it have to be appealed by a resident, or I mean, if the state ombudsman got hold of this, and, hey, you guys violated your
10 days.
Okay, within 10 days.
Oh, it's 10 days.
No one's going to
when the decision is made of record. Yeah, so it's.
Oh. All right. I thought that this was something that was like ongoing for the.
Trust me. The other thing, trust me. There's no state attorney. There's no attorney in the state attorney general's office that just waits with bated breath for variances that they can appeal. No one's going to appeal this.
Yeah,
Now this is really funny, because I was like, we're holding to the variance standards. And it's a hard thing to prove, but what I'm saying is this is not a just result, and so equity doesn't probably play into this, but I'm saying we should try to make it fit in the 5.
Okay.
I agree with that. I agree we should try and see what we can do, but I also think that we have to have something that we can actually justify and stand by.
I can
versus
try.
Just saying, oh, and you're great at that.
Well,
so.
sure. I mean, it's numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5. I have absolutely no issue.
Yeah,
nobody needs to sell me on those.
No issues. It's just that first
nobody
one.
needs to sell me on any of those at all.
If you could give me something that I can say, okay, I can justify that. But if you could give me something like that, because I agree. I think this is ridiculous.
You guys can sit down too if you.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, we're good.
You don't have to sit there or stand there, or else we just babble on.
Okay, so let's just assume for a minute that we all agree it meets 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So number 1, literal enforcement of this title would cause an unreasonable hardship on the applicant that is not necessary to carry out the general purpose of this title. So what are we literally enforcing? First of all, we're literally enforcing the 36-foot requirement. So our literal enforcement of that would impose an unreasonable hardship on them because reducing the width of that access by 1 foot 9 inches does not do harm to the purpose for which the 36 foot was imposed initially.
What was the purpose?
Exactly. Well, that's a great question. Is there enough room to allow ingress and egress for two properties?
Is it for a public safety issue? Is it, I mean, or was it just arbitrarily, hey, 18
well,
times
this is
2 is 36?
This is getting into the minds of this previous city council, whoever passed that, and so that's a fool's errand. But we just have to guess. Those are probably some of the reasons.
Because the requirements for variance is set by statute, but the 36 feet was set by city code.
City ordinance, yes.
Yeah.
And so is upholding the
So
I don't know if this is the right way. Is upholding the 36 foot necessary to carry out the general purpose for why it was imposed to begin with?
We don't know.
Well, that's our decision. We get to decide that. We're trying to say, is it necessary? That's subjective. We get to subjectively decide.
Well, I can tell you right now, I mean, I can think of tens of thousands, well, not tens of thousands, thousands of homes in Kaysville, and hell, across Davis County for that matter, whose driveways are nowhere near 36 feet wide.
Okay.
And essentially, that's what this is. I mean, this is something that's used as ingress and egress to that particular
but it's for two
property.
here.
Do you know,
The
Andy?
ordinance requires a 20-foot paved driveway within that 36-foot.
Well, that's even more reason to grant it.
Now, I'm going to argue with you, not
Okay.
because I disagree, but just to make sure the facts get on the table.
Okay.
Are you going to grant a 1.5 foot variance to a lot width in a subdivision so they can get one more lot in? Yes, 36 is somewhat of an arbitrary, it was a number we picked that met criteria. Or, so if we grant the variance and say 34.5 is enough, the next week Mr. Edwards is coming in and saying, I want to split my flag lot over here and build my mother's apartment on my property, and I've only got 32 feet. And now you're saying, well, that's 4 feet. And then the next guy says, well, I've only got 30 feet. So
We've
on any
moved the
ordinance,
line.
you have
Yeah,
to
we
draw
have.
a line.
And
when
that
you start
line-
buzzing the line, I think you open the door to a whole lot of fuzzing.
Well, and I don't dispute that. I absolutely agree with that. But I do agree with that. But if I'm playing devil's advocate, we already fuzzed the line over in the same neighborhood, basically, on that other one.
They actually showed property on that.
They say that what?
I believe they showed some property that they acquired from the, and again, this is variance, so there's no precedence.
Okay, that's the other thing. There is no precedent, number one. So we literally can say, someone could come in and say, you did it for them, and we'd say, sorry. I mean, we might not be very integrous doing that, but.
Andy, is it required that they own that 1 foot 9 inches, or could they simply get an easement from the neighbor that says
only 20
we
feet
need the
have to
right
be paved.
to use it?
Yeah. How does that work?
Technically, they have to own it.
Okay.
Now,
So is
they
it
could give the neighbor an easement back that gave them full right of use, but by the ordinance, it says ownership.
Okay.
I wish I had a whiteboard because I didn't realize the 20-foot after. This is what we're talking about. So we have this is my whiteboard. We have 36 feet, of which only 20.
Wait. We went from 36 to 20?
Yes,
We need a new whiteboard. No,
yeah.
I'm just,
36.
You're a fisherman,
Look, okay,
aren't you?
36
Yeah,
to 20. Only 20 feet has to be paved. So we're really worried about 1 foot 9 inches of landscaping.
yeah.
For the purposes what? It's a total arbitrary number.
You know, the public street, the 200 west, from curb to curb is 34 feet. And most of the streets around there where cars park on both sides and traffic goes
Both ways, yeah.
34 feet.
All along the school property.
So therefore,
mean, I'm fine.
Therefore, literal enforcement is not necessary to carry out the general purpose of the title.
But at the same time, I think we're, yeah, to me, it's how far do you bend the line? 'Cause I totally am in favor of them. I think it's ridiculous that we're debating it, especially when you put in that.
Right. But I mean, we could debate this all night long too, and still come up with the same idea. I mean,
in my mind, I can't. As hard as I'm trying, I can't.
I can't get past number one.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with a hardship.
I actually think there's problems. There's bigger problems with 2, 3, 4, or 5. But
you do?
I was just piggybacking on your guys' stipulations on those.
Regardless, though, I mean, I think like I said, in my mind, where I went first with this is initially, and I mean, I talked about this a half an hour ago, is where it needs. I mean, in my eye, I think it needs to go to your neighbor and say, hey, this is where I'm at, and this is where things are, and I'm talking about getting not even 2 feet of property from you.
Just a suggestion along that line, maybe we just table the variance. I think it was requested that they don't want to lose this as an avenue in case those other avenues don't go away. Table it, ask them to go investigate some other options that may work, and then if absolutely nothing works, then you come back and do a final consideration on the variance.
Okay, I actually like that. And what I'll add as an option that I would suggest to you is twofold. As an option, what you could do is get the code changed from either the code changed from 36 foot to 34 feet, 25.25, or you have us in the city council put in some language. It could even be one word. I don't know what it would be, but some language into this provision of the code that says 36 feet that allows an exception for certain reasons to the 36 feet.
Right.
That's a legislative decision. You have to come to us. You have to go to the city council. It would be a long process, but that's an option.
But I do agree, though, with tabling this, though, it doesn't kill it.
Because otherwise it's a year, isn't
right.
it?
Yes. It keeps it alive. We table this. We're all going to vote on this. Table it. You take the time, explore their avenues, talk to city staff, get something before us again. We can reopen this. We can, take this back if we need to.
Well, and you now know the 5 requirements.
Right.
We're happy to have you come up there and make the case and plead to us rather than us arguing back
right,
and
than
forth
us
with
trying
each
to
other.
come up with something that fits
Well, yeah, because the burden of proof is
we're-
actually on them.
Yeah, the burden
we're
of
your
proof is
advocates on this,
completely
but
on you.
we're just beating each other up
Right.
on it.
It is.
So it has to be something that's not self-imposed. Do you understand how this is self-imposed? And I'll try to explain how I think it's self-imposed. Right now, your property is completely compliant with the existing any code and the zone, the layout of the property. So there's no hardship. You're in compliance with the code. Only because you have made the choice to try to subdivide it into 2 flag lots has the hardship arisen. And you cannot self-impose the hardship. Does that make sense?
So with age, we're going to age and we're going to get old.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant.
Because even the fact that you're aging and getting old, which is not self-imposed, right? We all want the fountain of youth, but it's the decision to subdivide that's the self-imposition. Regardless of the reason for that decision of subdividing, that's what is that's what's self-imposed, is the decision to subdivide.
That's irrelevant, though. You can build anywhere.
There's lots of other
There's
places
lots of
out
other
there.
places to build.
Yeah, that's
because
exactly-
you want to build in your
I guess-
parents' backyard.
It could be something like you're being foreclosed on, and your only avenue is to subdivide so you could sell that lot to keep your home from being foreclosed on. We would consider that, man, that's a hardship. If you're not able to subdivide, then you're going to lose everything. That's not necessarily self-imposed. That's imposed by someone else.
By someone else.
That would be an example of, we really have to consider this, because if we don't, they lose everything.
Right.
But in a case like this, it's, well,
That's
we
even
want it
borderline in
for
my opinion.
convenience.
Could you
We
come up to
want
the
it
mic?
for
I
our
think
son. We
that's
want
the
it.
real in my opinion.
It makes it more difficult.
Right.
Yeah, so I have a question. So let's say I was able, the neighbor said, okay, yeah, we'll give you the 2 feet that you need.
Sure.
So then we legally own that property, but could we leave everything the way it is, the fences where they are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you don't have to come to us. You
No.
don't, you don't have to get a variance.
Yeah, there's no variance. I mean, then what you would do is, then we'd be approving
Well,
a
yeah, you
final,
do
or
come back
a
for a-
preliminary and a final plat. And we'd go, oh, God, you know what? That looks really good. Oh, yeah, that's Doug and Farron Nowak. I remember all that stuff.
Can you give an easement back to your neighbor and nothing changes?
Right.
Except he gets a little bit of money and you get a
Exactly.
driveway.
Or he gifts it to you or whatever. I mean,
Well-
so.
Again, just so we're clear, that assumes that
Yeah.
either taking the 1'9" there or 1'9" there, or splitting the difference and giving half the 21.
And I would do it on the little pie-shaped
Here?
triangle, yeah, because it's like,
That's 15 feet.
that's not
off
going to
the
make any
property.
difference.
Right.
And I don't, I
Okay.
probably don't even have to have 15 feet.
No.
You know, I mean, because
No.
it widens.
No, 'cause it
I
widens,
just need
right.
just a sliver
A
right
sliver,
there.
right.
And then that way it would have no impact on the Morrises where,
Exactly.
you know, they don't have the right
Right. And, no,
footage.
and like we said, you don't need to change anything. Nobody needs to,
It would-
raise a fence and.
It would be accomplished on paper, something that gets recorded with the county. I don't even know if you'd have to
Lot
survey
line
it.
adjustment.
What's that?
Would you have to do a new survey and record the new plat, or would it just
Ultimately, a plat would be recorded.
Recorded,
That would
yeah.
show that as 36 feet all the way to the street.
Right.
I don't care what easement, what encumbrance that 1.5 feet has, and I won't say this while the microphone's on. After the plat's recorded and you get your building permit, you give them the 1.5 feet back and don't tell us.
Right.
and you
What
only
was-
have 20
What was
foot
that,
of
Andy? I
asphalt.
didn't hear that.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
And you only have 20 foot of asphalt regardless, and
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
so that
I think there's easier ways around it than us
Trying to
debate
tap
whether
dance
we
around.
should
trying to bend it.
break
Yeah,
state law.
Right. So.
we wouldn't be breaking state law. Let me just say.
Right. So you have some viable avenues to and we'll table this now. In fact, I'll make a motion that we
I
that we
totally
table the request for a variance from section 1713 or 31-9 flag lot subdivision for Doug and Farron Nowak at 1833 South, 200 West.
I'll second, and I.
What was your motion?
Sorry.
That we table the request for
Okay.
a variance.
Aye.
I was distracting. I table that. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thanks for.
So you guys have an idea of what you need to do and how you need to make it work. I think it's very viable. I think that, through the camaraderie of your neighbors and, explaining to them, I think that you can make something work, so.
Yeah, good luck with that.
All right, number 10, call the public. There's no more public here.
Go ahead and come see me in the next day or two.
Other matters that come before the planning commission. Andy? Wait.
Yeah.
Emery, you got anything to add? Jokes? Limericks?
So,
Okay. Thank you.
we'll take a
Thank
motion
you.
to adjourn then?
Yeah, I'll take a motion to
Yeah, I'll
adjourn.
make a motion.
All right, adjourn.
Wait, he doesn't. Okay, we just cut him out.